Great. So I'm pleased to welcome Chris Geraghty to Golf Industry Asia. He's the general manager of 59 Club Asia. Chris, thanks for taking some time just to have a quick chat with me.
Okay. Nice to be here.
Yeah, good. So maybe first, what would be really good is, if you tell us just a little bit about you and your background or your experience, and then, maybe tell us a little bit more about what 59 Club is.
Sure. So, golfing background, failed tour professional, let's say, had to get a real job after running out of money on Euro Pro and Challenge Tour. And yeah, moved out of the UK in 2009. So spent a little bit of time in North Africa, the Middle East, and now Southeast Asia. So I was 9 years general manager with Troon at three different properties in three different regions, and now joining 59 Club Asia from January, able to take that experience from various regions and support venues throughout Asia to improve their standards and their service. So it's a really cool opportunity, and it's great to be zooming out and seeing things across a much broader, much wider geographic scale.
Yeah. How did you find living in the different regions? Which one was your favorite?
I think each had pros and cons.
Yeah.
Like I think in Egypt, like the people are just amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing people, but it was a challenging place to live. I mean, Cairo is a city of 30 plus million people.
Yeah.
So the traffic, the noise, and it's just a bit chaotic.
Yeah.
Bahrain, like, would completely the opposite end of the scale. People, again, absolutely lovely, but it's a country of 1.4 million people. So it's very quiet and very sort of subdued. And then moving to Cambodia, it's been 3 years I've been living in Cambodia, and it was sort of in the middle. It's a city of 3 million people, and it's a little bit like Cairo in some respects, but it's a little bit like the first world as well in some respects. And again, lovely people. So everywhere I've been, it's been very fortunate to just interact with great people everywhere.
Yeah, I think that was one of our aims as well for Golf Industry Asia, was to highlight the different regions. And like, as much the more time you spend over in Asia, the more you travel, the more you realize how culturally rich everywhere is. But the most important thing, I think, what you've exactly just touched upon, is how amazing all the people are. Anywhere you go, it's friendly, welcoming, helpful. It's really good. And I think, I think probably that leads us into the conversation of, the customer service side of Asia as well. But really what I wanted to talk to you about really is pretty much obviously the data background that obviously 59 Club are involved in. And pretty much to start us off, why do you think data is so important?
Well, at the end of the day, we all, as facility leaders, heads of department, anyone running any business, measure their financials diligently. Every company has a P&L at the end of the month, the end of the quarter, the annual, an annual sort of P&L, and we are basically judged on the performance of that P&L, but nothing really exists to measure guest satisfaction, member experience across any hospitality industry, realistically. So it's a case of, if you're not measuring it, like, how do you know where you are? How do you know how you are performing as a leader of a business? And how do you know how your team is performing without something in place to actually measure? And what we see is the people who are the venues who are performing the best vis-a-vis venues with long waiting lists, or venues increasing their green fee rates, etc., are the ones who have a really strong accountability culture in place and are not only measuring these things, but seeking to improve them all the time.
Yeah, like, even when I think, if you think of some clubs either that you've interacted with or played at, or people at the venues, they can sometimes have quite a distorted view of where their venue sits in the bigger picture, and it's not necessarily backed by any real data or evidence. It's more maybe ego, maybe just their opinion. But no, 100% agree. And where do you think data could help within management from decision making? If I think back to my time in a club, trying to get through a committee, trying to get ideas across, trying to sell them on different proposals. Where do you think data comes in that situation?
Well, for various levels of an organization, data creates alignment. It manages perceptions. I know the saying, my perception is my reality, but realistically, it's not. It's a singular viewpoint. And I think having data to support is really what we see is in members clubs, it aligns a GM or CEO with a board, and they're able to be on the same page with where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are. With the resort, I was a resort GM for many years, and I had many interactions with owners where they said, "Oh, our service is bad, or our golf course is bad, or this is bad, or this is really good." And in my mind, as the leader, I'm like, "No, that's not right." But you can't say that. However, if you've got that data and you're able to manage the perception of those various stakeholders from a board of members, a committee, an owner, even from your own members and guests, that say, "Oh, the CC, the service is bad." Well, actually, I've got tangible data that says it's not. You are able to manage those perceptions, and it creates alignment. It stops a lot of wasted time because you know where to direct your attention as a leadership team.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's also, it's something that, management can use, that, that it almost helps not have so much confrontation if it's, if it is a challenging owner or a challenging board, where obviously it's, sometimes it can be some sensitive conversations, but having something to really, back it and prove it, like you said, it's a good way of obviously them to be able to see where you really need to focus your efforts on. So what would you suggest would be the best way, to use the data to probably more structure accountability?
So, I mean, some of the top performing venues, many of the top performing venues in Asia that we work with have management company involvements, and they are the ones who have the best structure of accountability of making sure that everyone or every department, every head of department, they are aware, they have clear goals in terms of improving the service, because if you're not measuring and you don't have clear goals and you don't have clear ways to assess, did we achieve that goal, did we not, is this goal relevant, is it not? If you don't have a mechanism to actually measure that, then A, what goals are you actually setting, and B, what strategies are going to actually help your company improve and go forward?
Yeah. What would you be able to say in terms of an example of a mechanism to measure, or an example in the golf operation?
So most of the clubs, there are clubs out there that we see and we work with, and when you ask the people, okay, what are you accountable for? What are you supposed to deliver this year?
Yeah,
it's only financial.
Yeah.
And while we are in a commercial, we are in commercial entities and whatnot, but if you don't balance that scorecard a little bit more, and you don't have a guest satisfaction sort of metric to that, you're not necessarily going to be able to sustain a guest satisfaction and therefore sustain your business. So I would say that ensuring there's an accountability that, keep your financial goals, but ensure that there are some service-based, either guest satisfaction, member satisfaction goals in place as well, which come from a sort of somewhat of an independent viewpoint, which is what 59 for bosses.
Yeah. What kind of, what do clubs that are probably on the struggling side tend to do? What would you paint the picture as?
Generally speaking, little oversight.
Yeah.
From either a management company or an ownership group, and therefore there's not really much urgency to make improvements and so on. Generally, I'll go the opposite side of that. The venues which are performing the best, like even podium venues, like what we call podium, some of the best venues in the world, they're at 90+%, and they're out setting goals of 92. And then 94, and then 95, and they're always looking forward, and they're always measuring the improvement and allocating resources accordingly. Clubs which are members clubs and have 5-year waiting lists are asking themselves, okay, what can we improve to get to a 10-year waiting list to really drive that improvement? And they obviously leverage our data to create the accountability in which they can allocate those resources and efforts. Whereas on the other side of the coin, clubs who they put the P&L out, they put a business plan on the shelf in January, and then they look at it again in December. Did you hit your number? Did you not? And there's nothing else in between that. Those are the venues who the following year are looking for rounds. They're looking to do offers to get people in the door, and the gap between the sides leveraging it and doing well, and the sides not. It's just becoming wider and wider and clearer to see around the region.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of case studies or data that you can share with us or go through to show this? Or?
There's one in particular, and I was fortunate enough to present this at the AGIF conference in Thailand last week. I can't name the venues for obvious reasons, but I've called it a Jekyll and Hyde sort of case study. And on the Jekyll side, as mentioned, the venue only has revenue and profit KPIs, nothing service related in any of the goals within the management team. It's part of a huge group, so there's no oversight from management. It's one little line in a P&L somewhere that nobody ever looks at. And one of the key things, they consider appreciation and recognition of the teams an expense, and therefore try and avoid doing it, or that's an easy thing to get removed from the budget if needed. Whereas there's another venue we work with who have very clear balanced scorecards in place, very clear KPIs for the team from a service aspect. The owner and the management company are invested in the success. There's quite a bit of oversight. There's a lot of collaboration. The learning and development team are in place. Like, learning and development is considered an investment. Retaining the team is considered an investment. And the recognitions are very, very frequent as well. Like, results are praised, achievements are praised. They have internal awards at the venues and so on. And between those two venues, like in 2023, their averages were around about the same. They were high 60s to 70s. So they're around about the global average, let's say, from an entire experience. And in 2024, Jekyll went down and Hyde went up. And then in the middle of 2024, Hyde took another step up and Jekyll took another step down. And now in 2025, we've got one venue at 90+%, which had all of those things in place. Yeah. And we've got one venue at 66, 67%, which is behind where it was in 2023. So the actual result from having those things in place from our perspective and what we measure is so clear. Yeah. And one of those venues is increasing their rates in the second half of this year, and the other venue is sort of a good percent down on rounds and revenue, and they're looking for new initiatives to drive traffic. So it's very clear that the venues that leverage the accountability and measure what they do are the ones thriving and doing much better.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at the Asia region now, with the amount of development in golf and the facilities, whether it is the resorts commercial side or even then the competitive side of, there's still a lot of private member clubs out there that do rely on green fee revenue from guest play. So there's going to be even more of a importance of having a competitive edge, really measuring the customer service satisfaction, things like that, and it pays off in dividends long term, doesn't it?
Yeah, correct. And interesting conversation I was having with one of my good friends and a partner this morning around Vietnam is, Vietnam's got so many golf courses in the pipeline that the existing courses are now waking up and say, whoa, we need to get better. Like, we need to do something a little bit different and better, because otherwise, as a destination, Vietnam's going up by a huge percent. But because there's all these new projects on, from a facility level, it's diluting a little bit. And we're now seeing a lot of venues sort of waking up and saying, "Whoa, we need to do something with our experience in order to drive loyalty and higher frequency of repeat play."
Yeah, because a lot of it's going to be tourism driven, right? And the biggest thing from tourism is trying to find value for money. Just any kind of really avid golfer, you're happy to pay. You're happy to pay expensive green fees or the higher end, as long as the value is there and the experience is there. And through tourism, you only really remember the holidays, that you remember the cool experiences you had, not necessarily how cheap it was.
Yeah, exactly that. And making that investment and making that decision to invest resources and time into your guest experience will pay dividends. The data is clear on it.
Yeah, so maybe you can just give us a quick brief on how you and 59 Club come into this and how you could help potential clubs out there.
Yes, so we are not just a mystery shopper company. I mean, we do training, we do development, we support teams, we have education platforms and so on. But we use mystery shopping in order to create data and have clear data on any club. So we'd go in, we'd send mystery guests. The club wouldn't know. So the guest would call, make the booking, we would measure it, they'd get the email confirmation, we'd measure all the experience from start to finish, even through post-visit communication. And then we collate all that, we give it back to the venue, they know where they are, and then we work with the venue to improve on that and take the club forward. But we measure 300 different touch points across the facility on each visit, and we do regular visits in order to make sure that there is a consistency. And we're able to track that progress. We're able to benchmark against competitors. We're able to benchmark against the best in the world. We're able to benchmark against averages, so that the venues know where they are at all times, and can put relevant plans in place. You know, there's a venue we worked with recently. We're extremely thankful just because of our data. They're able to focus on things that have a meaningful impact on their member experience, rather than just doing improvements for the sake of improving, but then it not having the most valuable impact on their member experience.
Yeah. How do you find, obviously, the experience of working for 59 Club now? You know, in comparison to obviously being a general manager and being probably more on the customer side of 59 Club.
Yeah, I was a customer of 59 Club from 2018 until 2024, and with some good success. I mean, 5 gold flags during that time, in 2 different regions. So I always believed in the tool. I always believed in having that measurement, and I always used it to create that accountability that we've discussed, and take those. Thankfully, be able to take those facilities forward. Now, what's really exciting for me is now I've gone from always, like, you know, a single facility, let's say, on a ground level, working at clubs, and now I'm able to just sort of zoom out, look from a completely different perspective, and we work with 18 clients in 8 different countries in Asia, and I'm able to make much more. Personally able to make much more impact in supporting the GMs in place and the management teams in place to improve their service. And what I get to see now by looking at the region and traveling the region, like, the travel is another thing. What I'm able to see from zooming out is absolutely amazing. It's absolutely sparkling, and you're able to see, you know, you're able to correlate that, okay, these venues are good performing in our metrics, and through general conversation, you know, they're performing very well as a business as well, you know. So it's great to be able to sort of zoom out, see things from a much broader perspective, and to be able to have much more impact by supporting many venues.
Yeah, across the region and across the 8 countries that your clients are in, do you see any patterns within whether customer service or culture behind it?
Good question. Not necessarily at the moment. I think in terms there's a lot of service orientation in Asia. Thailand and Vietnam are very strong in the interactions, in the actual guest interactions. And what Asia is really doing very well, they realize that the guest experience is, what am I going to say, about the software. It's about that interaction. It's not about, oh, we've got a really nice golf course, we've got a really nice clubhouse, we've got a really nice restaurant. It's about how do I make the guest feel? How do I really make sure this guest who has paid, a lot of the clubs charge extremely high rates, but going back to what you said, how do I make this guest feel he's got value? How do I make this guest feel he's had a real experience that he or she can go back and shout about, and spread the word that club's doing really well.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that, Chris, before we finish?
I think it's cool. I mean, getting around and seeing people, it's great. Like, some of the teams I'm able to collaborate with is amazing. Some of the value we're able to give those clients is amazing as well. And I'm chuffed to bits to have the opportunity to be working in this context. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's, you know, quite a rewarding role as well to I think obviously going from club management where you can have an impact on, probably a smaller team or a smaller size of people and their careers and their skills, but then going down the training route and, seeing the needle move on a bigger scale with more people and more venues, I'm sure it's very rewarding.
Yeah, very much so. And it's great. It's great when you see the teams buy into it. It's great when you see the teams on it. It's great when I get a WhatsApp from a head of department somewhere or a general manager somewhere, like with a great result from a visit. Those kind of things that you can't buy those.
Perfect. But no, it'd be good to have you on again and have another chat about another subject that we can delve into.
Yeah, it'll be a pleasure. I mean, I've got so much to talk about.
Yeah.
Sometimes I talk too much, but
Don't worry.
I've got a lot to talk about, a lot to share. So
yeah, we'll be here to pick your brains anyway. But thank you so much for spending some time out of your busy day to have a chat with us.
Pleasure. Thank you much.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers.